People with food addiction struggle every day with a loss of control or inability to stop eating foods that are high in carbohydrates, fat, salt, sugar, or artificial sweeteners. They also suffer from painful feelings of shame and embarrassment when it comes to their food behaviors. Food addiction is a relatively new topic. But, it's a complex condition that has similarities to other types of addiction, such as drugs, alcohol, shopping, or gambling. However, help is available. Understanding the causes and signs of food addiction can help you lower your risk and change potentially problematic behaviors. What causes food addiction? Consuming highly palatable foods, or foods that are high in carbohydrates, fat, salt, sugar, or artificial sweeteners, triggers the pleasure centers of the brain and releases feel-good chemicals such as dopamine and serotonin. These foods affect the same area of the brain as drugs, alcohol, and behaviors such as shopping or gambling. Highly palatable foods often contain unnatural substances or higher than normal levels of natural substances that your body and brain can't process. This results in your body being flooded with feel-good chemicals. To help you hang on to or recreate those good feelings, your body and brain will begin to crave highly palatable foods. And, because your brain will adjust its receptors to compensate for the rush of chemicals, you'll eventually need to consume increasing quantities of highly palatable foods to get the same feel-good reaction. Who is at risk for food addiction? Because everyone must eat to survive, anyone can develop food addiction. Overexposure to highly palatable foods can increase your risk of developing a food addiction, and people who are overexposed at a young age are at an even higher risk. People who use food to cope with stress or change their mood are also at a higher risk. Studies also show that there are genes that put people at a higher than average risk of developing any type of addiction. The more addictive genes a person has, the more likely they are to struggle with addiction to food, another substance, or a behavior. What are the signs of food addiction? One of the main signs of food addiction is a loss of control over eating behaviors, especially when it comes to certain highly palatable foods. If you feel like you want to stop but can't, you eat to the point of feeling sick, or you feel ashamed or guilty about your eating, you may be suffering from food addiction. People who suffer from food addiction also may need to eat a large amount of food to feel satisfied, which can lead to weight gain. However, some do maintain a normal weight. It's also common to experience symptoms of withdrawal when they stop eating a certain food. Withdrawal symptoms include the following: cravings, headaches, irritability, restlessness. Food addiction also can affect your relationships and social life. People with food addiction may have problems at work or school, lose interest in activities they used to enjoy, avoid social events, or become isolated from family members and friends. How do I prevent or overcome food addiction? Food addiction is difficult to prevent because it's impossible to avoid food. However, one of the best strategies is to avoid overexposure to palatable foods by eating a healthy, balanced diet that's rich in natural, unprocessed foods. Eating a balanced diet and understanding the warning signs of food addiction will help you to act quickly if you suspect a problem. Overcoming food addiction typically involves following the same model that's used to treat other types of addictions, and you'll need a solid plan and plenty of support. First, you'll need to detoxify your body by avoiding trigger foods, such as fast food or foods with processed sugar. During this time, you may experience withdrawal symptoms that can range from mild to severe. After you detoxify your body, you'll need to work on changing your eating behaviors. You may need to avoid certain people, places, such as restaurants, situations, and foods that intensify cravings or make you more likely to consume the problem food. You also may need to break associations between food and routines or events, such as eating ice cream before bed or having buttery popcorn at the movie theater. Other strategies that can help include tracking your food consumption, planning your meals, and eating mindfully. Although some people can gradually reintroduce small amounts of problem foods into their diets, other people must avoid them indefinitely to maintain control over their food addiction. A food addiction or eating addiction is any behavioral addiction characterized primarily by the compulsive consumption of palatable and hyperpalatable food items, and potentially also sugar-sweetened beverages, SSBs. Such foods often have high sugar, fat, and salt contents, HFSS, and markedly activate the reward system in humans and other animals. Those with eating addictions often overconsume such foods despite the adverse consequences, such as excess weight gain, diabetes, and heart disease, associated with their overconsumption. Psychological dependence has also been observed, with the occurrence of withdrawal symptoms when substituting foods low in sugar and fat. Professionals address psychological dependence by providing behavior therapy and through administering the YFAS, Yale Food Addiction Scale, questionnaire, a diagnostic criterion of substance dependence. High sugar and high fat foods have been shown to increase the expression of FOSSIB, an addiction biomarker, in the D1-type medium spiny neurons of the nucleus accumbens. However, there is very little research on the synaptic plasticity from compulsive food consumption, a phenomenon which is known to be caused by FOSSIB overexpression. Description: food addiction often refers to compulsive overeating. Some who suffer from the condition engage in frequent episodes of uncontrollable eating, binge eating. The word was first used in a research-based publication, the Quarterly Journal of Studies on Alcohol by American Dr. Theron Randolph in 1956. It was continued to use throughout the late 1900s with more cases reported of the condition. In the 21st century, food addiction are often associated with eating disorders. The term binge eating is defined as eating an unhealthy amount of food while feeling that one's sense of control has been lost. Food addiction initially presents in the form of cravings, which cause a feeling that one cannot cope without the food in question. As the disorder progresses, behavior is modified in order to satisfy the urge for the food. These behavioral changes can result in binge eating disorder, obesity, and bulimia nervosa. A study in Physiology and Behavior by Paralock et al. Suggests that animal models given free access to food become more emotionally withdrawn once the food is unavailable due to the anxiogenic stimulus for more food that results. This behavior may suggest that food addiction is not only a problem of self-control, but that it is furthermore the body providing a stimulus so powerful as to numb the individual to the negative consequences of overeating. People who engage in binge eating may feel frenzied, and consume a large number of calories before stopping. Food binges may be followed by feelings of guilt and depression. For example, one might cancel their plans for the next day because one feels fat. Binge eating also has implications on physical health, due to excessive intake of fats and sugars, which can cause numerous health problems. Unlike individuals with bulimia nervosa, persons with compulsive overeating do not attempt to compensate for their binging with purging behaviors, such as fasting, laxative use, or vomiting. When a person suffering from compulsive overeating through binge eating experiences feelings of guilt after their binges, that person can be said to have binge eating disorder, BED. In addition to binge eating, compulsive overeaters may also engage in grazing behavior, during which they continuously eat throughout the day. These actions result in an excessive overall number of calories consumed, even if the quantities eaten at any one time may be small. During binges, compulsive overeaters may consume between 5,000 and 15,000 food calories daily, far more than is healthy, resulting in a temporary release from psychological stress through an addictive high not unlike that experienced through drug abuse. Compulsive overeaters tend to show brain changes similar to those of drug addicts, a result of excessive consumption of highly processed food, most likely consisting of high amounts of saturated fat, which is more energy-rich. Unlike smoking, drugs, or alcoholism, people with food cravings are not under a type of substance use disorder. Food addiction is more commonly associated with a behavioral addiction to a form of processed food that is not generally healthy. Signs and symptoms. A food addiction features compulsive overeating, such as binge eating behavior, as its core and only defining feature. There are several potential signs that a person may be experiencing compulsive overeating. Common behaviors of compulsive overeaters include eating alone, consuming food quickly, gaining weight rapidly, and eating to the point of stomach discomfort. Other signs include significantly decreased mobility and withdrawal from activities due to weight gain. Emotional indicators can include feelings of guilt, a sense of loss of control, depression, and mood swings. Hiding consumption is an emotional indicator of other symptoms that could be a result of having a food addiction. Hiding consumption of food includes behaviors such as eating in secret, eating late at night, eating in a vehicle, and hiding certain foods until ready to consume in private. Other signs of hiding consumption are avoiding social interactions to eat the specific foods that are craved. Other emotional indicators are inner guilt, which may consist of rationalizing why the food would be beneficial to consume, as well as feeling guilty shortly after consuming the food. Sense of loss of control may be indicated in many ways, such as expending more effort than usual to obtain specific foods, or spending unnecessary amounts of money on foods to satisfy cravings. This sense of loss of control may impede function during work due to disorganized thoughts, leading to a decrease in efficiency. Another indication is craving food despite being full. One may set rules to try to eat healthy, but find themselves frustrated when they are overruled by their cravings. A large indicator of loss of control due to food addiction is knowing one has a medical problem caused by their behaviors, but not being able to stop consuming the foods, further compromising one's health. Food addiction has some physical signs and symptoms, including decreased energy, decreased ability for activity compared to the past or compared to others, decreased mental efficiency due to the lack of nutritive energy, fatigue, hypersomnia, and insomnia. Other physical signs and symptoms are restlessness, irritability, digestive disorders, and headaches. In extreme cases, food addiction can result in suicidal thoughts. Effects. Obesity has been attributed to eating behavior or fast food, personality issues, depression, genetics, and also social and environmental conditions such as walkability and access to diverse foods. A lack of access to diverse foods could be caused by food deserts. Other effects of obesity could be an increased risk for type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and certain cancers. Food addiction might be one supplementary explanation for the epidemic of obesity overall. Management. Compulsive overeating is treatable with nutritional assistance and medication. Psychotherapy may also be required, but recent research has shown this to be useful only as a complementary resource, with short-term effectiveness in moderate to severe cases. Lisdexamfetamine is an FDA-approved appetite suppressant drug that is indicated, i.e., used clinically, for the treatment of binge eating disorder. The antidepressant fluoxetine is a medication that is approved by the Food and Drug Administration for the treatment of an eating disorder, specifically bulimia nervosa. This medication has been prescribed off-label for the treatment of binge eating disorder. Off-label medications, such as other selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, have shown some efficacy, as have several atypical antidepressants, such as mianzarin, trazodone, and bupropion. Anti-obesity medications have also proven very effective. Studies suggest that anti-obesity drugs, or moderate appetite suppressants, may be key to controlling binge eating. Many eating disorders are thought to be behavioral patterns that stem from emotional struggles. For the individual to develop lasting improvement and a healthy relationship with food, these behavioral obstacles need to be resolved. Treatment can include talk therapy and medical and nutritional counseling. The American Dental Association has sanctioned these suggestions, stating, "Given the continued increase in obesity in the United States and the willingness of dentists to assist in prevention and interventional effort, experts in obesity intervention in conjunction with dental educators should develop models of intervention within the scope of dental practice." Journal of the American Dental Association. Moreover, dental appliances such as conventional jaw wiring and orthodontic wiring have been shown to be efficient methods of weight control in obese patients, with a low incidence of serious complications. Several 12-step programs exist to help members recover from compulsive overeating and food addiction, such as Overeaters Anonymous. The Ontario Health Insurance Plan has announced a new program designed to assist individuals struggling with food addiction. Prognosis: left untreated, food addiction can lead to chronic conditions and eventually death. In an individual diagnosed with an eating disorder such as BED, the chances for relapse are high. Those with a food addiction were most likely overweight in childhood, which may lead to treatment resistance depending on the amount of time gone untreated. Due to poor mental health and lack of control and environmental factors, overeaters may relapse into their old habits even after completing various treatments. BED patients often report and acknowledge using substances daily as a coping mechanism. However, with treatment and follow-ups, there is a 50% chance of recovery. Success in overcoming this disorder rests on following treatment directions and a properly supportive environment in which to recover. There is a higher chance of successful treatment in teenage populations, in which denial is less ingrained than adults. Epidemiology. A review on behavioral addictions estimated the lifetime prevalence, i.e., the proportion of individuals in the population that developed the disorder during their lifetime, for food addiction in the United States as 2.8%. As obesity continues to grow into a worldwide problem, solutions such as a sugar tax have been suggested. A sugar tax is set to be introduced in Ireland to minimize the consumption of harmful foods and drinks. The idea that you can be addicted to food has recently gained increasing support. That comes from brain imaging and other studies of the effects of compulsive overeating on pleasure centers in the brain. Experiments in animals and humans show that, for some people, the same reward and pleasure centers of the brain that are triggered by addictive drugs like cocaine and heroin are also activated by food, especially highly palatable foods rich in sugar, fat, salt. Like addictive drugs, highly palatable foods trigger feel-good brain chemicals including dopamine. Once you experience pleasure associated with increased dopamine transmission in your brain's reward pathway from eating certain foods, you may quickly feel the need to eat again. Reward signals from highly palatable foods may override your signals of fullness and satisfaction. As a result, you may keep eating, even when you're not hungry. Compulsive overeating is a type of behavioral addiction, meaning that you can become preoccupied with a behavior, such as eating, gambling, or shopping, that triggers intense pleasure. When you have food addiction, you lose control over your eating behavior and spend excessive amounts of time involved with food and overeating, or anticipating the emotional effects of compulsive overeating. You also may develop a kind of tolerance to food. That means that the more you eat, the less you're satisfied. Scientists believe that food addiction may play an important role in obesity. But you can still have food addiction if you don't have obesity. Your body may be genetically programmed to better handle the extra calories you take in. Or maybe you increase your physical activity to compensate for overeating. When you're addicted to food, you continue to eat despite negative consequences, such as weight gain or damaged relationships. And like people addicted to drugs or gambling, you have trouble stopping your behavior. Signs of food addiction. Researchers at Yale University's Rudd Center for Food Science and Policy have developed a questionnaire that can help identify food addictions. To see if these apply to you, ask yourself if you keep eating certain foods even if you're no longer hungry. Eat to the point of feeling ill. Worry about not eating certain types of foods or worry about cutting down on certain types of foods. When certain foods aren't available, go out of your way to obtain them. Help for food addiction. Experts are working to understand and find treatments for food addiction. Some think its recovery may be more complicated than recovery from other kinds of addictions. Alcoholics, for example, can ultimately abstain from drinking alcohol. But people who are addicted to food still need to eat. A nutritionist, psychologist, or doctor who's educated about food addiction may be able to help you break your cycle of compulsive overeating. There are a growing number of programs that can help, too. Groups like Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous are based on the 12-step program used for alcohol, drugs, and gambling addictions. Others, Like Food Addicts Anonymous, use 12-step principles along with strict diets. They can help you avoid ingredients like sugar, refined flour, and wheat. Food addiction vs. binge eating disorder. Food addiction and binge eating disorder, BED, have some similarities, but they're also different. Unlike food addiction, BED involves often eating and compulsively eating large amounts of food in a short amount of time. You may feel guilt or shame afterward. BED may start in your teens or early adulthood as part of a cycle that involves a restrictive diet. You might begin a diet to lose weight but find that it's too hard to stick to, especially if you use food as a coping tool. You might reach a breaking point and binge on forbidden foods, then feel guilt and shame, and then resume the diet. Whether you're dealing with food addiction or BED, talk to your doctor. They can refer you to a mental health specialist who can provide tools for managing your eating habits and help you figure out what works best for you. Most people with addiction attempt to quit several times before they succeed in the long run. While it's possible to overcome addiction without help, you may find it beneficial to seek help. Many health professionals and support groups can help you to overcome your addiction. Thank you for watching this video.